Innovation behind it. Baylor has driven progress in health and medicine through research, education, and care that push the frontiers of modern science.
8:59 here at News 88.7. Good morning. Earlier wreck 10 headed in. Katy Freeway before Mason. They cleaned that up. Also South Sam headed west right around that toll plaza. Right lane blocked off with a stall. Slight chance of more afternoon showers. Had some this morning and some spots. Left some high water here and there. Mid-90s for the high. Could see maybe some showers on your drive home. Tonight's low in the upper 70s. Mid to low 90s for the weekend. More sunshine. 86. Galveston 85 here at the University of Houston. Get HPM anytime. HPM Plus. Free to download for smart TVs. It's KUHF Houston News 88.7. A service of the University of Houston. Houston Matters starts right now, 9 o'clock. Stick around.
President Trump is in Houston today after attending a fundraiser last night. He's visiting Johnson Space Center this morning. I'm Craig Cohen. Today on Houston Matters, details on the president's visit from Houston Public Media's Sarah Grunau and Michael Adkison.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is a production of Houston Public Media with support from Baylor College of Medicine.
Also this hour, from a curious title included in a banned book list to an ex-officer in court over using flock cameras to stalk his ex, we contemplate intrigues in the news on the good, the bad, and the ugly. Then how some area restaurants buck the trend and succeed not just for years, but for generations. And a new art exhibition celebrates anomalies. Thanks for joining us on News 88.7. Remember, check out our live video feed on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. We'll start with the news update from NPR and News 88.7. Stay with us.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. Stocks on Wall Street opened higher this morning as investors tune in to hear a speech at this hour from Federal Reserve Chairman Kevin Warsh. NPR's Scott Horsley reports the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose about 145 points in early trading.
Investors are eager to hear from the new central bank leader about how he and his colleagues plan to tackle stubborn inflation. Warsh has repeatedly vowed to restore price stability, but markets have been disappointed by the lack of detail so far. The Fed chairman's last news conference, following a rate-setting meeting in July, was greeted by a stock market sell-off. Warsh has been deliberately vague about his outlook, arguing that too much talking can tie the Fed's hands and distort the signals that financial markets are sending about the economy. Annual inflation in July was 3.7%, according to the Fed's preferred yardstick, well above the central bank's target of 2%. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
President Trump is offering assurances that Russian President Vladimir Putin will not wage a military operation on a NATO country. NPR's Greg Myrie reports Trump spoke following a visit to Moscow by the director of the CIA.
President Trump was asked if President Putin might be considering additional military action in Europe.
I've had good talks with him. He's not going to be attacking a NATO territory.
CIA Director John Ratcliffe made an unannounced trip to Moscow on Tuesday, igniting speculation about the reason for his visit. The CIA has declined to comment. However, a U.S. official said Ratcliffe warned Russia against attacking NATO countries. The CIA chief also told the Russians the U.S. has conclusive evidence Russia is providing intelligence to Iran. The U.S. official was not authorized to discuss the matter publicly and spoke on condition of anonymity. Greg Myrie, NPR News, Washington.
The Canadian Prime Minister is reacting to President Trump's executive order renaming Lake Ontario to Lake America. Dan Karpinchuk reports Trump announced the name change on Thursday amid the escalating trade war between the two nations.
Prime Minister Mark Carney says no matter what the U.S. calls it, Canadians will know it as Lake Ontario, then, now, and always. It's the latest tit-for-tat in what's becoming a bitter trade war, fanned by insults from Trump and mainly from Ontario Premier Doug Ford. Carney also provided some history, posting on social media that the name Lake Ontario comes from the indigenous Wendat Nation word Ontario, which translated means the lake is beautiful, the lake is big. The consensus among Canadians is that Trump can do what he wants as far as the U.S. is able to, but cannot dictate what Canadians call Lake Ontario, or even what the international community or other countries call it. For NPR News, I'm Dan Karpinchuk in Toronto.
This is NPR News in Washington.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include FJC, a foundation of donor-advised funds working to maximize the impact of charitable giving and to create customized philanthropic solutions. Learn more at fjc.org.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Shelby Rose. President Trump is waking up in Texas this morning. He stayed the night in Houston after spending the evening at a GOP fundraiser for Ken Paxton's U.S. Senate bid.
We're working very hard. We want to win that race. He's running against a man who should never be. We have a very good candidate, Ken Paxton.
His opponent, State Representative James Tallarico, has been slowly creating distance from Paxton in the polls. The survey by Texas Public Opinion Research has Tallarico leading Paxton 48 to 42%, his biggest lead so far. The poll also shows Tallarico leading independents by 21 points. Harris County District Attorney Sean Tier says his office has collected most of the evidence related to the death of Lorenzo Salgado Araujo at the hands of federal immigration agents in Houston. He told Hello Houston there are some pieces of evidence the office still needs from the federal government.
There are back pieces of evidence that we still need from the federal government that we've requested and are effectively waiting on. But we're now much more moving into the evaluation phase and really determining what, if any, charges are going to be presented to the grand jury and asking for an indictment.
He did not provide a timeline for a grand jury presentation. A 30-year-old man is charged with murder after investigators say he called 911 and admitted to stabbing his father at a Northwest Harris County home. Sheriff's Office deputies responded to a house on Stoneside Drive Thursday morning and found 64-year-old Aubrey Sanders dead with multiple stab wounds. The suspect, identified as Liam Sanders, was taken into custody at the scene. The Harris County Sheriff's Office says deputies had previously responded to the home for a domestic disturbance as well as a mental health-related call. The investigation is ongoing. And the Astros pulled off a series win against the New York Yankees last night. Final score 5-1. They still maintain a one-game lead over the Rangers in the American League West Division. The team stays in New York to play the Mets tonight in a series of 3. I'm Shelby Rose, News 88.7.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Good morning. Thanks for joining us here on News 88.7 and Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. Coming up this hour, why some restaurants buck the trend and succeed for generations. A new art exhibition celebrates imperfections, plus the good, the bad, and the ugly. First, though, President Trump arrived in Houston Thursday for a 2-day visit. He landed at Ellington Field around 5 o'clock Thursday, headlined a private close to the press fundraiser for the Republican National Committee benefiting Attorney General Ken Paxton's U.S. Senate campaign. And this morning, he heads to NASA's Johnson Space Center to award the Congressional Space Medal of Honor to the crew of Artemis II. Houston Public Media's Sarah Grunau tracked the president's arrival and appearance at last night's fundraiser and joins us now. Sarah, good morning.
Good morning.
Were there any protesters or supporters gathered near the airport or along the motorcade route?
Yeah, there was a large group of supporters that gathered near Ellington Field yesterday evening. There were about 100 fans who stood by to watch his arrival.
This fundraiser was closed to the press, but it was expected to draw some big-ticket donors. How much did it cost to attend?
Yeah, that's right. According to a copy of an invite that was shared by the New York Times, those invited to the reception needed to pay about $10,000 to attend the event.
Wow. Did that entrance cost include a chance to meet the president?
So that entrance price was just to attend the reception. A photo opportunity would have cost about $88,000. Host committee tickets for the reception were going for more than $400,000.
I'm sure we could pull together some loose change and make that happen. Do we have any confirmed names of who attended?
So this event was intended to shore up campaign dollars and was intentionally closed off to the general public and media, as you mentioned. So we have not yet independently confirmed the names of those who attended the event.
This fundraiser is specifically aimed at boosting Ken Paxton, who's had a fairly low public profile through much of the general election campaign. Has Paxton made any public statements about the event, or has he appeared alongside the president at any point?
Yeah, Paxton has been a staunch supporter of President Trump. The two have made joint appearances together before, but this appears to be the first since Trump actually endorsed Paxton's bid for U.S. Senate. Trump endorsed Paxton over Republican Senator John Cornyn just a few days before the Republican runoff in May, so he has a pretty significant stake in his success in November.
Recent polls have shown James Tallarico with a slight lead over Paxton, but the race is still very much a toss-up. This seems like a pretty big showing by the president to boost Paxton's campaign. Does the president have any other Texas stops planned?
Yeah, President Trump is planning to appear at the Republican National Committee in Dallas on September 9th, and will give a keynote address at that time. CBS reports that Vice President J.D. Vance will also give a keynote address on the first night. That will be the Republican National Committee's first ever midterm convention.
Houston Public Media's Sarah Grunau. Thank you.
Thanks.
And with us now is Houston Public Media's Michael Adkison at Johnson Space Center, where the president is scheduled to present NASA's highest honor to the astronauts who flew this year's Artemis II mission around the moon. Michael, good morning.
Hey, Craig, good morning.
What do preparations look like at Johnson Space Center this morning?
Yeah, I mean, walking into the Johnson Space Center, you can feel that so much of the attention today is going to be devoted to this right here. Even just driving in this morning early, as you know, when the president comes to town, you have to get here quite a bit early to go through security and what have you. You could see all these police officers driving down I-45 and posted around Clear Lake. So very secure here in the Clear Lake area at the Johnson Space Center.
What's the timeline for the ceremony?
So this official ceremony is supposed to begin around 10 o'clock this morning. You can watch it on NASA's YouTube page if you want to see what happens. There is also going to be a pre-ceremony event of sorts that's going to begin here in just a few minutes at 9:30.
Besides the medal ceremony, is the president expected to do anything else while he's in Clear Lake?
So we do know the president is going to make a phone call to the International Space Station at around 11 o'clock this morning. He's also here with NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman. They likely are going to have discussions with each other about federal policy and what the future of space exploration in the Trump administration is going to look like.
Remind us exactly what the Artemis II crew accomplished and why this medal they're receiving is such a big deal.
Of course, if you've forgotten, these are the 4 astronauts who made that historic mission, who went around the moon and back. It's the first time humans had been in lunar territory in more than half a century. And now they're going to be recognized today with the Congressional Space Medal of Honor. It's not a new award. It's been given since the late 1970s. The first recipient was Neil Armstrong, who, of course, was the first man on the moon. Other recipients have included John Glenn, Alan Shepard, Jim Lovell, and it went posthumously to the crews of Columbia and Challenger.
You mentioned the president and the NASA administrator likely speaking today. It's been a turbulent stretch for NASA under this administration with proposed budget cuts, concerns about layoffs, big shifts in the Artemis program's direction, then, of course, the successful mission. How would you describe the mood at Johnson Space Center heading into today's ceremony?
Yeah, from the space exploration front, it's a very exciting time to be at NASA. Obviously, as you mentioned, Artemis 2 went successfully. Now NASA is already moving full steam ahead on Artemis 3 and looking ahead to the moon base that's going to be developed on the surface of the moon's south pole with missions like Artemis 4 in the future, cultivating that. But at the same time, you've also got the Roman Space Telescope that's going to be launching this weekend. That's going to be one of the new flagship programs that NASA has alongside the Hubble and Webb telescopes. But you also mentioned uncertainty, that the workforce right now is a little bit on edge about what's next for NASA. Administrator Isaacman has said he wants to see fewer contracted workers in NASA and wants more full-time government employees. So the employees here at JSC and beyond that I've spoken to expressed a little uncertainty about what's next for them and what that's going to look like here at NASA.
Houston Public Media's Michael Adkison. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next, from a curious title included in a banned book list to an ex-officer in court over using flock cameras to stalk his ex, we contemplate intrigues in the news on the good, the bad, and the ugly as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
PBS Drama on
You count on Houston Public Media. That's why you're here right now. Take the next step and become a new member today. Every gift makes a difference. And with a gift of $5 a month or more, you'll receive PBS Passport, a member benefit that lets you stream more of the shows you love anytime. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. Join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
And from Baylor College of Medicine. With over 125 years of innovation behind it, Baylor has driven progress in health and medicine through research, education, and care that push the frontiers of modern science.
Support comes from Houston Theater Week, a citywide celebration of live performances. Participating organizations include theater, dance, and music presenters. Returning August 24th through the 30th. Tickets at HoustonTheaterWeek.com.
A lot can happen in a week, some of it good, some of it bad, some of it downright ugly. When faced with intriguing developments in the week's news, we turn to a rotating panel of non-experts to parse the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. On today's panel, Raul Ramos, Associate Professor of History at the University of Houston, Marco Roberts, Chairman of the Texas Conservative Liberty Forum, and Lisa Falkenberg, Senior Columnist with the Houston Chronicle. Raul, Marco, Lisa, welcome to Houston Matters.
Thanks.
Good morning. Good morning. Panel, last week during a news conference, Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said he would introduce a bill next session that would penalize schools a letter grade in their school accountability ratings if they didn't comply with a law requiring them to remove indecent, profane, or sexually explicit books. But while the law doesn't include specific titles and leaves that up to individual school boards to decide, Patrick offered a list provided by a Houston area Christian activist group called Recover America, of more than 2,000 books Patrick calls filthy, dirty, and vulgar. He maybe should have looked a little more carefully at the list. As the Houston Chronicle's Texas education reporter Lawrence Maurer noted Wednesday, among the titles included was Auschwitz survivor Elie Wiesel's Night, one of the seminal autobiographies of the Holocaust, which just this summer the GOP-controlled State Board of Education approved as required reading for 8th graders beginning in 2030. Texas law requires students to learn about the Holocaust. Night was specifically recommended by a state advisory commission and by Texas Education Agency Commissioner Mike Morath. The TEA specifically deemed it age-appropriate for 8th graders. While it's not clear if Patrick knew Night was on the list after the Chronicle story was published, he did write on X that the book depicts, quote, graphic violence and the machine gunning of babies and should not be available in middle school libraries. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's preferred banned book list for schools includes a Holocaust memoir that's soon to be required reading for Texas 8th graders. Is this good, bad, or ugly, Raul Ramos?
Oh, this is ugly in so many ways. I could start by talking about book banning in general and what that means and what that looks like. But there's one part of this story that really just stuck in my craw. It was that he's actually lowering the grade for the school. That's not a small matter. I mean, our school district was taken over because of those grades, of those school grades. They're supposed to be about student accountability, and instead he's turning it into a place to play out politics. And this is not really about the schools meeting educational standards. And so that part I think really is ugly. But there was something that came up this week that it shows that things might not turn out that way. A judge just stopped a state ban on drag shows. And the evidence he gave was that Dolly Parton would have been banned under this ban for drag shows because of some people might consider her lewd and indecent. And I think, this is just to remind us that there are some deeper core values that we need to teach and that we need to continue to pass on. And Dolly Parton's a good example of that.
All right. Good, bad, or ugly, Marco Roberts.
Well, I think I'm going to take a Dolly Parton-esque approach to this and look for the good. I'll just start by saying that I think Dan Patrick would have done himself a service if he had done what I wish more people would do, which is tone down the rhetoric and simply had presented the list in a more moderate way of saying, we're concerned about the books that are in schools, which we should be. And here's some books that we're considering, instead of, upping the rhetoric so hard, into using words like filthy and vulgar, because now you do a broader characterization of the books that are in there instead of simply saying these are the books that we're looking at. But I think that I think a lot of good is happening here because parents are more involved now than they ever have been before in what the contents in the schools. That after COVID, a lot of parents did discover that there was a lot of stuff that was being offered in schools that even in that Houston Chronicle list, people would say that shouldn't be in a school. I think it's also interesting that good that there are activists willing to go through 2,000 books. I mean, that's a lot of review. And reading the Houston Chronicle story on this, it doesn't sound like they were taking the job lightly. In fact, their language was a little more moderate than Dan Patrick's. I think Dan Patrick's, frankly, approach is to double down. He was caught with a list, and now he's just doubling down on that, which is what many politicians do these days on both sides. Say something is not quite right, and instead of saying, "Oh, I made a mistake," or "I should have," they double down. But it's all working with the way it should work. I don't think the book's going to be removed. We have activists on the left who are also doing their job, and I have to hand it to them. You were able to find out of this list, books that you thought should be put back in. So the process is working. I think that people should be encouraged that we are living in a society where activists from both sides are very much engaged. Everybody sees what's happening, and I think we'll end up with the right result.
All right. Good, bad, or ugly. Lisa Falkenberg.
It's good and ugly in so many ways. I'm just trying to get my mind around this. So the state of Texas finally has a list of mandatory books that must be read. The whole book, not just a chapter, not just a paragraph. We finally have a list. And now in the 8th grade, if you follow the law and follow that list, you could get downgraded in your in your grade, your campus. It just doesn't make any sense. Obviously, this wasn't thoroughly thought through. Obviously, it's politically motivated. And it's also it's disappointing because I'm going to be honest about something. It is really hard, actually, as a mother of 3 kids, to figure out what's appropriate and what's not. It is really hard. And you kind of rely on schools and, perhaps the TEA recommendations, the State Board of Education recommendations as some kind of baseline. But I've got one kid could pretty much read anything. I've got another kid that is so sensitive that listening to NPR in the morning, I have to turn it off sometimes. So does that mean I'm coddling her too much and she needs to be challenged? It's really hard to know that these days. And so when you have the same state, TEA, State Board of Education, saying one thing, as Lieutenant Governor saying another, it's really confusing. They need to get on the same page.
Panel, a former Katy police officer is due in Fort Bend County Court Wednesday to face charges related to allegedly stalking his ex-wife while using flock license plate readers for more than 6 months beginning nearly 2 years ago. As Houston Public Media's Fort Bend County reporter Melissa Inahe reported Tuesday, Sergio Rodriguez is charged with 2 third-degree felonies and could face up to 10 years in prison if convicted. Between November 2024 and April 2025, Rodriguez allegedly tracked his ex-wife's location using the controversial camera system and placed a tracking device on her vehicle. He was arrested in early May, suspended, and then later fired. Rodriguez has since pleaded not guilty. The case, first reported by KHOU, highlights privacy concerns about surveillance systems like flock cameras, leading to growing public mistrust of the company and its technology. Flock Safety says more than 5,000 law enforcement agencies use their cameras. Katy's police department touts 5-year use of the system for helping to solve hundreds of crimes and says it's established safeguards, including a digital audit of who uses them. A former area police officer is headed to court next week, facing charges he misused flock cameras to stalk his ex-wife. Is this good, bad, or ugly, Marco?
Well, obviously it is pretty ugly, but I think it's unfortunately doing damage to an issue regarding new technology that now a lot of people are going to react more negatively. And this is happening in other areas. We're seeing this happening with AI, with automated vehicles, but. Law enforcement has been very vocal and very clear with the numbers that the flock cameras have, in fact, helped a lot of folks. So I think that people ought to look at the flock cameras maybe, and I'm not saying this is the way that it must be, but I would suggest that perhaps we ought to look at flock cameras not that differently from a cop on the beat like we used to have. You always had some cop walking down the streets, and nobody saw that as surveillance. It was simply somebody maintaining peace and order, and certainly the presence of a police officer walking on the street did in fact help. We don't have that anymore. You were talking about public streets also, so it's a public, anybody could be filming. So to say that, well, only the police cannot film, but everybody else can, that would also be a strange development in this case if people go in that direction. I think the other thing people need to keep in mind is that, yes, this technology was seriously misused, but police officers, unfortunately, have misused powers that they have in horrific ways. And we know that even, for example, the power to stop your car has been used by police officers in the most terrible ways that I don't think I need to describe here. So I want people to just to step back a moment and not assume that because something like this has happened, that therefore this must mean that technology cannot be employed in some way that is useful to all of us.
All right. Good, bad, or ugly. Lisa?
I think it's ugly what he's charged with doing, of course. It's good that this was actually taken seriously, this woman's complaint, investigated, and that a DA actually charged him, because that's not very common in law enforcement. Does badly. The issue here, I think I agree with Marco, is okay, you've got a cop doing something that he shouldn't have been doing, misusing his power, same as he can misuse his gun, same as he can misuse his right to stop people. But the other thing I've been wondering is, where are the kubashes on this? And for you who haven't lived here very long, we used to have all of these, we still have some of them, red light cameras, right. A lot of litigation. Oh, it's an invasion of privacy. I can't remember all the legal arguments that they used, but we don't have the red light cameras anymore. People are running red lights like crazy. We could use those cameras, I think. So there used to be, what I'm saying, a very vocal pro-privacy, argument going on here anytime that surveillance was an issue. And now these things have just been implemented without much check. So I'm just glad to see the coverage. I'm glad to see stories like this getting attention.
Yeah, I think that was 20. Oh.
No, it's all right. Jump in, Raul. Good, bad, or ugly.
I think that was 2010 when we voted in that, or 2013. I can't remember either, but that does feel, ironic, or that all of a sudden now we're just supposed to be okay with it. And things are so much different than when we banned red light cameras, because the ability to process this amount of data so quickly was not around. So this, with other tools, this kind of information can be exploited even more. I think the problem here is another layer that we maybe haven't mentioned, which is that it's corporations that are running this. This is, a kind of, Flock subsidiary of Amazon, a subsidiary of Dynacorp, a subsidiary. It's going to that RoboCop scenario from. I'm dating myself here.
Going with the 80s version
right,
of
right.
RoboCop.
So
yeah.
Houston is the new Detroit here. And while on the one hand we have some safeguards around public servants, and in this case it's our police departments and our tax dollars that are paying these companies to gather this information. Yes, we can safeguard how it gets used, but it's stored. They have it. They own it. They can, and once the contract runs out, or once somebody else pays more money, they can do that. Take that information and do other things with it. Like, for instance, one state can apply their abortion laws to somebody driving through their state to another state and trace that person coming through. Things like that clearly are not about a cop on the beat. To me, this feels a little bit like the whole thing around cookies on your website. And how almost every website now you have to approve. I approve that you can use my. I approve the cookies for this site or whatever. I feel like this is our information, and we never approved that our license plate gets used this way. So again, it's a little bit like. We're guilty until proven innocent, and everybody's guilty in this particular scenario.
I do think that was one critical difference between this and the red light cameras, because the real objection with the red light cameras was that people were being cited and given fines, and they had to prove that they were not driving the car. So it was sort of an issue of, where there was an actual enforcement automatic that was happening,
Guilty
which is
until proven
right,
innocent.
which people were objecting to that, and so I think it's
so
a
how's
critical
this
difference.
different then? I mean, it's still who's in the car. It's the car license plate.
Yeah,
that's
but
being
the flock
traced.
cameras are just taking pictures, and they're just there
Piece
to
of evidence.
Yeah, they just go back to it if something happened, but there's not like an active enforcement occurring.
Right, but it's still being stored because they can go back over time and find that, trace that license plate.
Depending
over
on
the
what the rules are. And I would agree, though, that I do think that whenever you involve corporations in it, you have to be very careful you don't include a profit motive for finding people and things like that.
Finally, panel, on Tuesday, Layton's restaurant on Montrose announced effective immediately it is only accepting physical credit or debit cards and dropping tap to pay unless accompanied by an ID. The reason? Chargebacks. Layton's opened the location in May, and in just 3 months since, owner Layton Dixon tells Cron.com the restaurants had 30 or 40 chargebacks from customers who loaded someone else's card account on their phone to pay for their meals. The charges show up on the actual account holder's credit card, who naturally disputes the charges, and the restaurant goes unpaid. Layton's is not alone. Other area restaurants report similar chargebacks occurring, but it's not clear if others will follow Layton's lead and limit tap to pay to address it. Craft Pita owner Raphael Nasser will not. He tells Cron $2 or $3 grand is not worth the convenience of having a fast dining experience. A Houston area restaurant pushes back against fraudsters using tap-to-pay technology to pay for meals using other people's credit card accounts. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Lisa.
I mean, it's ugly, but business owners got to do what they got to do. Some aren't taking cash at all anymore. Some... they got to do what they got to do. I have to say, I am very confused by this. I had to read that story several times to understand. I guess I still don't understand. So one part of it seemed like people were charging a meal. Then they went back and tried to cancel it and said that they didn't eat it.
So they used something other than the actual physical card to use for the credit card payment. So they've got a card number stored on their phone, but it's not theirs.
Right. They stole a number.
They stole a number.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And how did they do that?
Well, I will show you afterwards for a small fee. Good, bad, or ugly, Raul?
Well, I heard that you have to show an ID to get unlimited pasta at the Olive Garden. So maybe this is the root of why that's the case. Look, I think that businesses are charged 3%, something like that, 2.7% for a credit card charge. Yep. I know that because now some businesses are charging you that 3% back when you use a credit card. I know my auto shop down the street does that, and those are for some big charges. So I can understand they don't want to eat that charge. So what are the credit card companies doing with that money that they're charging merchants? Right, the merchants are paying it because they believe that the convenience is important, but to then pay that fee and then have to pay for the fraud that happens under the credit card company's watch. I think it's good for these restaurants that they're pushing back around that. It's going to force the merchants, the credit card companies and the technology companies. We can tap to pay and just carry our phone. In fact, a lot of states now have your driver's license on the phone. So that's another possible workaround. You could just do that way.
All right, good, bad, or ugly, Marco.
Well, I mean, I'm with Lisa here that businesses have got to do what they've got to do, and then make their own decisions as to what is going to serve their bottom line, because otherwise they won't exist. All I'm going to say is that I'm still working on the issue of people not taking cash. That's my real issue. Okay, I'm stuck with that. I'm always really just put off by that when you go out there. And I would say, well, you know what? It's my cash. You can see it. No one's going to charge it back to you. You just take it. So maybe he could, they could start. And it's in Montrose particularly that's occurring a lot more. Technology is always going to, as we see already in this discussion, technology is always going to bring some new wrinkles into it. And I think it's good that actually businesses are still able to make their own decisions on what they think is going to work for their business and what makes more sense. And hopefully that resolve itself. But please, I'm almost asking Dan Patrick, just pass a bill that they have to take cash.
Well, I think they got rid of the penny. Didn't the mint stop making pennies?
Yeah, but they're still accepting those most places. Raul Ramos is an associate professor of history at the University of Houston. Marco Roberts is chairman of the Texas Conservative Liberty Forum. Lisa Falkenberg is a senior columnist with the Houston Chronicle. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
I'm Tessa Baudetta.
It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
Your support for Houston Public Media powers the programs you trust and rely on. And your employer may help your contribution go even further. Many employers sponsor matching gift programs, doubling or even tripling employee contributions. It's an easy way to maximize your impact on the programs you rely on. Search for your company and get started today at houstonpublicmedia.org/match.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. The profit margins for restaurants are always thin. The competition can be fierce, the hours are long, the work is hard. Is it any wonder, then, that many Houston area restaurants come and go, lasting 5, maybe 10 years before someone or something else moves in? And then there are the remarkable exceptions. Dining institutions that last multiple generations, that thrive decade after decade, surviving 50 years, 80 years, even a century. Houston Matters producer Michael Haggerty wanted to know what longtime Houston restaurateurs believe is the secret to such long-lasting success. So he visited Molina's Cantina, Brennan's of Houston, and Christie's Seafood and Steaks to find out.
If there are any common ingredients among Houston's longest tenured restaurants, they'd seem to be, first, a sense of family, in more than one sense of the word, and second, a healthy amount of tradition, both from the restaurant and from its patrons. And when I say family, the 3 places I visited across the city were all family-run and even had staff who'd been there for years or even decades. And over the years, eating at those places has become something people took their kids to do, and those kids took their kids, and they took their kids, and sometimes even further down the line. And while those restaurants have had to change some to adapt to the times, their patrons kept going back, largely because certain things never wavered. Core dishes and flavors were the same as they remembered them the first time they ever sat down at a dining room table. A great example of that is Molina's Cantina. Founded in 1941 by immigrants from Mexico, these days Molina's is run by its 3rd generation, 3 brothers, the grandsons of founders Mary and Raul Molina. In an unthinkable time when there weren't that many Tex-Mex places in the city, Molina's was responsible for introducing many Houstonians and outsiders to dishes plenty of us see as staples today. And the restaurant now has 3 locations. One of those grandsons involved in keeping the Molina's tradition alive is Ricardo Molina, who told me about growing up in and around the restaurant, washing dishes and bussing tables.
But growing up, you go there and you'd see these old waiters and old cooks and all that, and I thought they were family. I didn't know any better. I thought it was aunts or uncles or something like that, and they were just great. We had some great people. Still have great people working with us, but that's really I think one of the best parts of our business.
Can you tell me a little about the role that your family's restaurant played in introducing Houstonians who weren't from Mexico to a lot of these dishes that now are staples of all of our diet? There's good Tex-Mex on every corner just about, and guacamole and queso and all those things that we take for granted maybe now, but what did you guys help introduce?
You know, we had the Tex-Mex staples for years, and then in I guess it was the early 70s, everybody started serving grilled meats and fajitas and a lot of grilled foods, and so we got into doing a whole lot of that, and we kept the core items, the Tex-Mex items that we've had since 1941, but we've added a lot of other items. People from Houston in our area, they've always known, everybody's grown up with Tex-Mex food, but then I guess it was the 80s, late 70s, when we had such an influx of people come in from up north at one time, and that was really something kind of different. You had to do a lot of educating of people. I remember we used to cater for a real large electronics company, and they had a home base here in Houston, but they had offices all over the country, and they'd bring them to Houston for training. and we'd cater their lunches, and we'd have a buffet there. And going through the line, you literally had to explain to people what a tamale was. You have to tell them, what guacamole was, chili con queso. They had no earthly idea. And for us in the greater Houston area, I mean, that was just, like a bologna sandwich. Everybody knew what it was.
Can you tell me about some of the dishes that you guys serve that are unique to Molina's?
Sure. We have the Jose's dip that a lot of places are doing a variant of it, but that's something that we created. It was actually created by a waiter named Jose, believe it or not.
Go figure. So tell me what's all in that then.
And he just started adding, get the kitchen to add taco meat to the chili con queso, and that took off. And that's one of our number one sellers right there.
Yeah, it's cool that you had the room there and the people interested, and also you allowed people that work for you to kind of develop those dishes and have the freedom to try things.
Yeah, it's we have guests that care, we have staff that cares. I tell people that if you worked with us for a month at one of our stores, you would know 70% of the people. Our guests are so loyal. We're doing, we're third generation, but I know we're serving at least fourth generation and possibly fifth generation guest, which is really, really great. The flip side to that is if you make a change, they'll tell you about it, because you're not supposed to change anything. I don't care if it's good or bad, just don't change anything.
Don't mess with it, right?
Don't mess with it.
Don't be here expecting a certain thing and dang it.
We have to tiptoe around changes around there.
So what are some of the things you think helped this restaurant stay in business for so long and succeed? We see restaurants that come and go that are full of fanfare and star chefs and whatever. They're packed and they don't stick around for more than a few years sometimes. What's the secret to longevity?
There's a lot of moving parts in our business. I was talking about change, and be careful with change because people don't like change. They came in 20 years ago and they come in today. They want what they had. They want it to taste the same. On the other side, they can get bored with the selections, so you need to keep some freshness there. So it's really a balance. I can't tell you how many times guests will come in and say, "Hey, how are y'all doing? Good to see you." "Yeah, we just came from the airport. We just came from Mexico." "Okay, well, they're here eating Tex-Mex. It's not Mexican food, it's Tex-Mex. It's our comfort food." And people like that, Service never goes out of style. It's something you have to work on all the time. They love to come in and they get the regular waiter. Some people will come in and the regular waiter's doesn't have a table available. They'll wait 45 minutes, sometimes an hour, to sit with their regular wait person. It just brings that comfort. It's going to be the same food that walks out of the kitchen, but having someone take their order, talk to them, they've got to know them. They bring, birthday cards for the staff. It really becomes a family on both sides of the equations, and for me, that's probably the best part.
Another place with deep family connections is Brennan's of Houston, now run by Alex Brennan Martin, whose family had a long history in New Orleans cuisine before expanding to Houston with its location in Midtown in 1967. While the restaurant's known for several dishes, Brennan Martin told me they're known just as much for something else.
Well, first and foremost, I think we're known for our people. I think we're known for our hospitality. I think that's what keeps people coming back decade after decade, generation after generation. For Mother's Day here a few months ago, we had 4 generations. Not at all unusual to see 3 generations at a table, but to have 4 generations at a table and was really, really quite something for me. So I think first and foremost, and our hospitality comes from our people, and I don't mean that lightly. We have servers we have one gentleman who's been with us about 55 years now, 56 years. It might be several 40, both in the kitchen and in front of the house, 30, 20, our team first and foremost. Second, food. Being from New Orleans, we're clearly a lot of New Orleans heritage on our menu. Well, not turtle soup. To be fair, is chief and foremost amount. Our crab cakes are something we're well known for. Bananas Foster is a dish my family created way back when on Bourbon Street. So there's a lot of New Orleans, to be sure, but we've been here in Houston now more than 50 years, coming up on 60 years, and you can't help but have that rub off on you. We call what we do Texas Creole. My mom called our version of cooking when she was Haute Creole, the idea being Creole food taken up just a little bit, refined a bit more. So that's kind of the amalgamation.
Seems like there's a tradition is a big part of it, and not just the tradition of who's running it, but the tradition of who's coming.
To be sure, what every restaurateur that opens a new restaurant wants, the most important thing they want is an old restaurant, right? Folks want it to succeed and last, and so you've got to be careful with your business. You can't overextend. You can't take on too much debt. All the business basics, but we're very fortunate in that we've had a great group of people behind the scenes. We have a small business that we call corporate, and we've just been blessed with wonderful people who have managed that part of the business for us. I mean, if you're a good restaurateur, you're going to be terrible at insurance. And that came in very handy for us after the fire during Hurricane Ike during 2008 when we had to completely rebuild this building. Well, not rebuild, these are the original bricks, but replace the roof and then literally gut the restaurant and rebuild. So we've taken lessons from friends and family who have helped us build a good, solid core of the business. Best if you can own your real estate and not be at the whims of a landlord or market conditions or something like that. So different things like that have helped us along the way. But most importantly, it's holding on to our people and our team and our staff.
I guess now you're a place where there's a lot of people who are, we've always gone to Brennan's, or we've been going, and the generational thing. That wasn't always the case when you were new, right? So how do you, obviously, what do you do to get to that point, to get to the place where we have this status and this reputation and that people want to keep coming back forever and ever?
You can't fool customers very long. That's probably one of the most important things that I've learned. You have to be who you are, right? And, it's as I said, it's so easy to get a lot of attention, especially these days with social media and whatnot, for something that's, a dish that is smoking or, some other concoction that's coming along. Molecular cuisine was one, for quite a time. And eventually people eat the food, right?
Yeah, that's the hope.
And so you have to be yourself. You can't try to fool customers. And food delivered with real Southern hospitality. I think why do Mexican restaurants thrive so well in this country? It's our culture. The Hispanics are a huge part of our community in the state of Texas and far beyond now. But I think that's how and why those restaurants thrive. They're not trying to fool the customer. They're being themselves, and they're doing it with genuine hospitality.
Now, nobody in Houston's been doing the restaurant thing as long as Christie's Seafood and Steaks. Now more than 100 years old, the story of the restaurant on Westheimer, just west of the Galleria, began when a Greek immigrant named Theodosios Christofides Americanized his last name to Christie and started selling fish sandwiches on the waterfront in Galveston, and later in a location where the Texas Medical Center now stands. Years later, another young Greek man went into Christie's restaurant looking for work, and seeing that the dining room was swamped with customers, he just started seating patrons and clearing tables. James Priavolos became so indispensable that eventually Mr. Christie offered to sell his business to him, but on one condition: Since Christie had no children of his own, he officially adopted Priovolos and his brother and had them change their names also to Christie. Now, James's descendants, George and Maria, by the way, the third generation of people whose name was not originally Christie, run Christie's. Other locations have closed over the years, leaving just the dining room on Westheimer. James and Maria told me about what it's like to run the oldest still operating restaurant in Houston and about the dishes it's known for.
Well, we're famous for our wild-caught Texas shrimp. We've been adamant about only having Texas shrimp. We were recognized by the Texas Agriculture Commissioner for only serving wild-caught Texas. We believe in it. We support our shrimp.
The only thing we've ever served.
Right. And so that's the number one thing. And we make our own sauces. We make our own mayonnaise. So we have a remoulade sauce that is a unique 1917 recipe. It's full of garlic. So if you have a hot date, maybe save that for another time. But we make our own tartar sauce, our own cocktail sauce, our own remoulade sauce, our own salad dressings. Other than that, what's interesting is we have customers that only eat fried shrimp. Like they can't stray. But then we also have customers that only eat our fresh fish because we have a great fresh fish selection. And because we're Greek, of course we're going to make it Greek style, which is lemon juice, olive oil, and oregano, or our traditional fried, or we do blackened. So over the years we have adjusted. Like we're not the type that you see the same menu that you saw in 1955. We've changed, we've adjusted.
It's evolution. It's not just fried food.
We incorporated our Greekness into it also. We incorporated our neighbors from Louisiana, that kind of cuisine. So whatever you're craving seafood-wise, you can find it here.
Yeah, and you got to evolve, I imagine. I mean, what ways have you changed the food or other things over the years to evolve to, new tastes, new demands? People these days want to take beautiful pictures of their food for Instagram. Any of that? How have you changed?
All the above.
Well, if you look at our Instagram or Facebook page, we always try to update it. We've changed a little bit aesthetically. We try to just upkeep like little things. Like during COVID when we were shut down and we were only doing to-go orders, it was a great opportunity. We were able to remodel the front. We were able to remodel the bar. We were able to remodel some other things that we needed to. So you might look at the frame and the frame looks the same, but we've updated colors, we've updated the booths, we've updated the chairs, new carpet, things like that. So
yeah, and can you talk a little bit about some of your loyal customers and that sort of thing, and the people that come in and they bring their family, they've come here for maybe generations.
One time I was talking to a group of ladies and they told me, you understand, Maria, that most of the decisions for the Texas Medical Center to be built happened at Christie's because it was right there and it was a sit-down restaurant. And so yes, we've had the generations that have come through. We have one family that they've taken a picture in front of this mural, in the back dining room mural, like from the 90s, and that the tradition is to come to Christie's.
It's those traditions and those things, do you feel like a certain amount of pressure having, this business preceded you, preceded your father, preceded you, and now trying to carry it on into the future? And so many.
I wouldn't call it pressure. I know that, we're never comfortable. Okay, let's make that very clear. We're never comfortable where we are. We always are aware that we need to be improving. We always need to be evolving. I think it's more of our obligation to everyone's families. It's not just our families. It's an obligation to the Houston and everyone around us to continue providing what we provide and evolving.
What's your favorite part of doing this day in and day out?
My famous saying, every day the door's open, it's like Christmas. You never know who's going to walk in, and you never know what you're going to have for that day. That's the beauty of this business.
That was George Christie and his sister Maria Christie of Houston's Christie's Seafood and Steaks. We also heard from Alex Brennan Martin of Brennan's of Houston and Ricardo Molina of Molina's Cantina. For Houston Matters, I'm Michael Haggerty.
Imagine two friends getting together.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
Live performances. Participating organizations include theater, dance, and music presenters. Returning August 24th through the 30th. Tickets at HoustonTheaterWeek.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Baylor College of Medicine. With over 125 years of innovation behind it, Baylor has driven progress in health and medicine through research, education, and care that push the frontiers of modern science.
A new art exhibit at Winter Street Studios explores imperfections and irregularities and how to find meaning in the anomalous. Let's talk now with the artists behind it, Geoffrey Brune and John Perretti. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
What led you to want to explore anomalies through art?
I think both of us are really interested in how culture and history underpins art and underpins artists that use culture and history to underpin their art.
John, can you give an example of that that's in this?
Yeah, so we really look at the way that history and the amorphic structures that we've seen before and how they impact us today, like the Sumer, right, talking about roses and how they cultivated roses and how Geoffrey has been photographing roses that are dead for a long, long time.
How does collaborating on something like this differ from presenting an exhibition as a solo artist?
Well, in a way, it's like a solo artist in that our relationship, we're from incredibly different backgrounds, has really been a kind of portal of conversation about these kinds of ideas. And in that sense, not only are there truly collaborative pieces and individual pieces, but the individual pieces also have the kind of osmosis of this collaborative conversation.
You mentioned your backgrounds. Each of you has careers and disciplines outside the art world. Geoffrey, you've worked in design and contracting. John, you have a background as a professional fighter. Is that, in a way, an anomalous image, right or wrong, in some people's minds of who and what an artist is supposed to be? Because I think there are some who have this idea in their head that if you're devoted to art, that's all you ever do, that's all your life is about. But the reality is you got to do lots of other things, sometimes just financially anyway.
I was coined the martist, right, because of the martial and the arts. So that space between the fine arts and the martial arts has always been a place, that thing. But I've been drawing since I'm 2, right? And I feel like the divergency of those subjects really, for me, becomes, in a sense, a combination of who I am.
And I bet, Geoffrey, it's the same thing with you for architecture and design. Kind of, a lot of what you do, if you're really into photography, is going to be about composition and angles and how things are looking. It's the same kind of thing.
Right. But most of the architectural work really underpins the photographic work in that I'm a modernist. And I look at ideas rather than style. And in Houston, the relationship of the view and the garden, the interior and the exterior, and how those kinds of spaces can sequence and layer is really important to me. And the photography that's a misnomer for what I do. I'm really looking for layers of visual information. So there's a kind of depth to it. So I basically am a still life photographer. If it moves, I don't photograph it. I don't know how to photograph birds or people or anything like that. I'm looking at these kinds of cultural layers in the imagery that's used to express other ideas than what the image actually is.
Geoffrey Brune and John Perretti are the artists behind an upcoming exhibition at Winter Street Studios exploring anomalies, imperfections, and irregularities. It's on view starting Saturday and continuing through the end of October with a formal opening reception event on September 12th. Geoffrey, John, thank you both very much for talking with us.
Sir, thank you.
And that will do it for today's show. The Houston Matters team includes Michael Haggerty, also Joshua Zinn, Brenda Valdivia, and Mincho Jacob. Jared Carroll's our technical director. Remember, you can check out Houston Matters anytime, subscribe to our podcast for the audio, or visit Houston Public Media's YouTube channel for the video. On Monday's show, we will discuss, among other topics, hair loss, hair changes, and signs of a need for medical attention. We'll talk with Dr. Oyatawa Asempa from Align Dermatology here in Houston. Also, we will review this week's Texans trade and preview the regular season ahead. I'm Craig Cohen. Have a great weekend, and join us Monday for those and other Houston Matters.
There is so much news to cover in Greater Houston, and your vehicle donation directly supports that work. If you've got a car, truck, boat, or RV,